We're talking about a new book that's out called Slimed, an oral history of Nickelodeon's golden age. Marc Summers, the host of Double Dare, with us this morning. Marc, tell us about what I want to know, because I was a huge fan of Double Dare, as I think most people were who were around that time. How did you get hooked up with Double Dare, Nickelodeon?
Well, it was one of those right place, right time things. They had auditioned about 1,200 people in New York, didn't like anybody, and came to Los Angeles. And I had a friend, Dave Garrison, who was a ventriloquist at the time, decided he didn't want to be on camera anymore, and he got the original call. And he called me and said, I'm not going to go to this audition. You should go instead of me. And I did. And they had 3 callbacks. And after 2,200 people, I got the job. So it was, timing.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Now, for someone who, the story that came out, I guess, within recent years was that you don't handle like messy things well. You have what a weird job for you to end up with.
Well, it was weird in some ways. I found out I was diagnosed way after the fact with something called obsessive-compulsive disorder, and my thing was about neatness and cleanliness. During the time of the taping of Double Dare, which was 8 years and 525 episodes, it really didn't affect me. There's been all sorts of talk that, it changed my life and it made me crazy. Not true at all. I was doing a talk show on Lifetime called Biggers and Summers when we had a doctor on who started talking about it, and I admitted on the air that I had it, and next thing I knew I was on Oprah and Howard Stern and writing books and all that stuff. And, it's all good now, but it was sort of an interesting thing that a guy who has OCD would be on one of the messiest shows on television.
I was going to say, if there's one thing that studio was not, it's messy. It was clean and organized, obviously.
For sure.
So, hot fudge sundaes all over the place and everything else. One thing that I've always loved about your story is that you started, if I'm not mistaken, as a page at The Price is Right.
Yeah, I was at CBS Television City. I had moved to Los Angeles, went to school in Boston, and I was a page on Price is Right and Match Game, Sonny and Cher, All in the Family, Good Times, What's Happening Now, Carol Burnett. I got to work on all those fantastic programs. And one day the announcer for Joker's Wild, an old game show, got sick, and they came into the Pages Lounge and said, anybody here have any performing experience? And I raised my hand, and the next thing I knew, I was doing warm-ups on game shows. And then I was doing the warm-ups on, Star Search and Webster and What's Happening Now and Hour Magazine, and that turned into a career. And then I was a stand-up comic, and next thing I knew, I was hosting Double Dare. So it's been an interesting journey from point A to point B.
I assume then that you had plenty of opportunities to talk to guys like Bob Barker or Gene Rayburn, or because I loved Match Game or any of those shows. What was like?
Yeah, Rayburn. He was an interesting guy. He was kind of a dirty old man in many ways, but one of the funniest guys I'd ever met. And he was very nice. Difficult to talk to at times. Barker was nicer. The first show I actually had a real job on as a writer was Truth or Consequences. The last year Bob did it, so we became fast friends back in 1974, believe it or not. But I tell you, the guy who really helped me a lot and was a good mentor was a terrific guy by the name of Bert Convey, who since passed away. But he was on Tattletales and did many other shows, and he was often the guy I went to and said, I've had this opportunity, what should I do? And he was always there for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know Bert Convey, Win, Lose, or Draw, and a million other shows.
Yep, absolutely right.
Yeah, what was the best piece of advice you ever got?
Well, I got called early on when Double Dare was just bigger than life and infomercials started. I got a call to do an infomercial, and I remember I was taping a show with Bert, and I said, can I talk to you afterwards? And I went into his dressing room, and I said, I've got this great opportunity. They've offered me a fair amount of money, but it also was a tainted thing. If you did an infomercial, unless you were Cher, it kind of was like your career was in the toilet.
Okay.
And he said to me, do you really need to do it financially? And I said, no. And he said, well, don't do it then, because I think it'll, cast you in a whole different way. And listen to him, and I chose not to do it. And it's good to have somebody to go to who's been successful, who can sort of understand and reason with what the opportunities are. And, you can either listen to the advice or not. And I never did anything just for money. I think if you do something you like, it'll turn into some things for you financially. It'll be okay. So I've never said, hey, I can get X amount of dollars, I better do that. And
it sounds pretty solid, too, because I'm sure everybody else was like, yeah, do it, man. Get the money. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't do it. I listened to it, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, of course. Marc Summers with us this morning on CD 102.5. And now you're hosting like a dozen shows on the Food Network.
Well, I'm doing Unwrapped for 14 years, the longest-running show on the channel. We're both on Cooking Channel and Food Network. I'm the exec producer of a series called Restaurant Impossible on Food Network with Robert Irvine. And I will be hosting a new show starting in March on Food Network. Can't talk about it too much just yet. But, I'm kind of a chameleon. I go back and forth and get to produce, get to host, and it's been a good career.
What's your favorite kind of food?
Pizza is my favorite food in the whole world. I can eat pizza 7 days a week.
Where is the best pizza?
Well, there's a place currently that I love in Philadelphia. A gentleman by the name of Marc Vetri has two places. One is called Osteria, where he has a very sort of thin crust pizza, and then he's got a new place called Pizzeria Vetri that's got a different sort of style to it, but I love it. Those are my two favorites right now. But it's fun to go across the country and try pizza. I mean, there's great places in Brooklyn and New York and Boston, and anywhere I go, I try the pizza.
I'm going to ask you real quick, too, back to the book for a second.
Yep.
In the history of Nickelodeon, as somebody who was there early on, was there anything in this book that you were like, well, I didn't know that?
Not really. I mean, I was there, in the formative years, and there's many things that I revealed in the book that I think a lot of people went, whoa, I didn't know that. But it was a good time. It was a fun time. They let us do whatever we want. There was a lot of creativity. The management didn't get involved. And back then it was about entertainment for the kids as opposed to Nickelodeon today, where it's all about selling merchandise and getting people to spend money. And I think therein lies the problem.
Yeah, it's kind of, I had a chance to talk to one of the former MTV VJs the other day, and it's like people who were there back at both channels, and there were sister channels in the golden days of those channels. Now they're a little disappointed maybe on where they are right now.
Yeah, it's sad to me because they had such a great thing going, and then they decided to change horses in midstream. Which VJ did you talk to?
It was Kennedy.
Yeah, Kennedy, who was a very, very bright lady. I've done a lot of stuff with her, and she's super smart. And it was a different channel back then. I mean, MTV and VH1 and Nick, we all started together. We used to do a lot of promotional things together. And there was some camaraderie going on, which doesn't happen today, unfortunately.
The book is called Slimed, an Oral History of Nickelodeon's Golden Age. Marc Summers, appreciate the time, man. Thank you very much.
Hey, have a great afternoon.